good.
Okay, I see the live, Jihan.
Yep, we are live. Thank you, Dr. Pat. Yep.
Okay, once again, the most important people on the screen right now are the students. And so we have the students mixed in with our board members who are forming, some of our board members who are forming a panel. We do this every semester. And in fact, what Elliot and I were talking about is starting next semester, because we've had such good participation from our board, that we're going to start splitting it in half so that people can have more time to talk. But I want to welcome the students again. It's their class. This is our speakers class. And I want to welcome our board members. We'll introduce them in a second. And I want to welcome our audience around the world that's watching us right now. And we hope that you enjoy this today. What this is a panel of our board members in their hotel sector, restaurant sector, the tourism sector, you name it, we have representation on the board, developers, looking at Charles. And we have representation on the board. Elliot Faucione, Elliot, would you raise your hand? Elliot Faucione is one of the most senior members on our board. That means he's old and he's been here a long time. And Elliot has acted as moderator for us on this and does a great job. Audience at large, you will have a chance to type in questions. And Dr. Jihan Jabanu, there you are, Jihan. And Jihan co-hosts this with me every week now. We started this semester through the M3 Center, which is really pretty terrific. And Jihan will have questions coming in from you, which we can answer. So Elliot will at one point in time, we go to 1:45, Elliot Eastern. Elliot will stop this in enough time for the students to ask questions, and they have questions. Most of them have questions they're going to want to ask. And when that's done, if there's time, we'll turn it over to the audience at large. So there's the ground rules. We decided to save time today, that rather than having everybody introduce themselves, because this is a little different on Zoom, that I will just go ahead and introduce people. I'm going to do it in the order I see you on my screen. We all have different orders on our screen. So when I call your name, would you raise your hand? We're going to start with Ken Edwards. Here he is. Ken Edwards is on our board. Ken is the owner and CEO of TriStar Hotels and HM Books Online. And in all full transparency, Ken was a student of mine in undergraduate school at UNLV. I was a child professor and he was a baby student. And that's how it all worked out. And then Ken just got his master's degree from us here. So we're very proud of Ken, and it's terrific. Next is Rick Benninghove. And Rick, would you raise your hand? Rick is the CEO, general manager, probably has a bunch of other titles too, at Longboat Key Club. He's also been seeing that facility, that whole operation through major renovations. And Rick, I'm surprised your hair has not turned gray yet. You're looking pretty good, bud. So Rick is there. And then of course we have Elliot Faucione. Elliot is, he is the head of the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, Tourism Development Commission, works on that. So he's like Mr. Tourism, Mr. Development for Manatee County and for Bradenton, Palmetto, and all the Anna Maria Island, all the associated communities. And Elliot is our moderator today. Jason Pabst. Jason is one of our most recent board members to join. And Jason, would you raise your hand, Jason? There. And Jason's at SOTA. And he he graduated within the year. And we had our visiting team come to us for our accreditation for ACFA, which we'll talk about in this afternoon's board meeting. But they recommended we have a recent alum. So Jason is our recent alum, and we would have done that anyway, just because Jason's got it together. Right, and then coming down the screen here, I see Charles Giffler, and Charles is, thank you, Charles. Charles is a developer, but he also was a hospitality person, still is, for a long time, closely associated with the Hyatt organization, the Hyatt property here in Sarasota, Manatee. He's been a member of this board for a long time and is very supportive. Next, we have Damian O'Riordan. Damian is the general manager of the Ritz-Carlton Sarasota. He too should have a lot more gray hair because they have a brand new building going up, which is, there it is, Damian, okay, which is almost done. And gorgeous, right on the water. And Damian has just seen this property through a lot of hard work this year. Dr. Jihan Chubanalu, you already know. Jihan is co-host of this, and he's our senior hospitality professor here at USF. Next is Virginia Haley, and Virginia is she's the head of the Visit Sarasota, which is the board for Sarasota, the tourism board and the promotion board, and she in a way is Elliot's analog, two different methods, but Elliot's analog in Sarasota. I was on that board till this year. They threw me off the board this year because they said I was useless. No, my term ended. No more 8 o'clock on Thursday mornings. It's great, Virginia. And then we have Rob Grimes. Rob is with food and beverage technology and hotel technology. He's got a company that does all those things. And he was good enough to invite Jihan and me to the FRLA meeting in Orlando recently. And Rob, I've known Rob for many years. He serves on another board. He serves on UNLV's board, but then he just implored me to have him come on this board because he said UNLV's wasn't good enough. So that's okay.
Penn State. Sorry, what was that?
And Penn State too. Forgot about Penn State, right?
Okay.
Now I don't have a picture here. Who's Ed down here? Well, we're not going to worry about it right now. And let me just go over to the next screen. And that's it. I also want to introduce Dean Moaz Limayim. And would you raise your hand, Moaz? Thank you. And Dean Limayim is the dean of the entire Muma College of Business. He is my boss and all of our bosses, but he's so far been a pretty darn good boss. So we're glad he's here. We want him to see the cool things that we do. Elliot, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pat. Really appreciate everybody being here. We have a decent sized panel, so I'm going to ask the panelists who I have the utmost respect for to try to limit your responses to about 2 minutes so we can get as many questions in and really feed these students some really intriguing information. I would say for the students, your objective should be one thing. If you can take away one of the responses from one of the panelists and apply it to your life, then you've met your objective for the day. It should always be your mindset. I think there's going to be 2 words that we may focus on a little bit. Number 1 is the word expectation, and number 2, the word change. Because today, and I always start with my colleague in crime, Virginia Haley.
If you can silence your microphones, that'd be great.
We'll just wait until, Ed, if you can mute your phone or mute your computer, that would be great. Anybody else that's not talking to mute would be great.
Right, and you see Ed Childs has joined us, Elliot.
Yeah, and it's great to have Ed on there. But I always like to start with my colleague in crime, Virginia Haley. We partner a lot regionally. And Virginia, as you'll learn in this soon, is she's a lot more articulate than I ever will be and a lot smarter to me. That's why I always like to start off with Virginia. But with that, let's get rolling here. And then Jihan, if there's questions online or from the students, please just flag me and you can shoot out the question yourself. But I'm going to start with Virginia because we're in obviously the hospitality industry and beyond is in an unprecedented time. And as of today, specifically, the industry does not know when normalcy will return. And Virginia has been a long-time leader in not only Sarasota, but the state of Florida. Virginia just finished up her time as chairman of the chairwoman of Visit Florida. And Virginia's career even led her to walk in the halls in Washington, D.C. Virginia, all your experience, I think you might say that this is probably one of the weirdest, unique years in your career with your voice in the community, in the region, in the state. You know, how are you managing expectations as a leader, specifically to a hospitality industry that is really crying out for help all the time.
Well, thank you, Elliot. And your paycheck for those kind words is waiting outside the office.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you. I think for us, the key with this, and you're right, I mean, we thought Deepwater Horizon oil spill was bad. We thought the year-long red tide was bad. We thought, you know, all these different things we've dealt with, the murder of the British tourists. Yeah, it's so unpredictable. There's no knowing when it's going to end. You know, Johnson & Johnson had to stop the vaccine process last night. So, you know, you're dealing with this great uncertainty and total upheaval in our industry. So for us, like you guys, it's been over communicating. Our staff has had one-on-one calls with everybody in the industry, working on communication loops for those who are no longer working at the properties or in the restaurants, so we can still keep them in the family as much as possible. Sharing information, whether it's tourism related or not, just keeping everyone on the same page. And then for us, we have to think about recovery, but you've got to be so careful with the way you invite the visitors back to your community that you're not upsetting your local residents. And you need to reassure them that the people who are coming to Sarasota are just as concerned about health and safety as you are. So striking that balance, listening to what consumers are doing and really letting their behavior tell us what our marketing should be. Because neither of us have enough money to convince someone who doesn't want to travel to do so. And we shouldn't. But looking at those behaviors and identifying those people who might be willing to travel and sending our message to them. So I think that's really how we've tried to navigate this through communication and through research.
Thanks, Virginia. I really appreciate it.
Elliot, before you continue, I just want to welcome two new people that came. So we mentioned Ed Childs is here. Ed is a restaurateur, 3 restaurants here in Sarasota, Manatee. And also I want to welcome David Burton, who's our newest board member, restaurateur with 3 restaurants in Tampa. Go ahead. Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks, Pat. I'm going to go to my good friend, Damian O'Riordan. Damian, gosh, one of the great guys. There's no one better than Damian. He's the real deal. And what you see is what you get every day. He denies that. Damian tells me he has a bad day. I've never seen it. But Damian, you know, you as a general manager with the elite brand that you have, not only at your property, but globally, how important is it for employees to adapt to change being imminent in every day of our life?
I think it's very important, and I think you know, Elliot, with relation to our ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you, they have been so fantastic throughout this entire process. But it is all about managing change and communication. So we remained open throughout the entire pandemic, and I think we are very fortunate to be in Sarasota as a destination, because Sarasota has rebounded a lot more than a lot of other destinations around the United States. So with that, we've been very fortunate. I think it's all about communication with your ladies and gentlemen. I think that's what's very important. We do lineups with our ladies and gentlemen every day, and we do briefings with our ladies and gentlemen. And it's really about keeping them up to date and communicating with them, because when you have our ladies and gentlemen, they're also, you know, at the beginning, they're concerned working during a pandemic. And then as they slowly start to come back to work, it's educating them on our, you know, we work for a wonderful organization, Marriott, and we have fantastic protocols. So making sure that we're communicating our protocols with our ladies and gentlemen, making sure that we're creating a very safe and surgically clean environment for them. And then when we do that with our ladies and gentlemen, then we're also able to communicate that with our guests. So it's really all about making sure you have a very positive work environment, making sure that communication is constant, because your ladies and gentlemen are the ones who are talking to your customers all of the time. And that's the communication that goes on to our guests is from our ladies and gentlemen. So making sure that our communication is on point and making sure that we are not missing a beat in terms of communication. We always want to try and be 2 steps ahead so that our ladies and gentlemen are set up for success. And I think that creates consumer confidence, and that helps as well with delivering a world-class guest experience.
Thanks, Damian. I'm going to segue to Robert Grimes. Since you're in the technology business, you have customers that come to you wanting new technology in their organization. Is it a simple transition, or do you struggle that even though they want new technology, they struggle to transition from the old technology? How do you get through that curve seamlessly?
So, well, thanks for having me here. So it's interesting because I've done a lot of webinars recently with people, especially in the restaurant business. And I keep asking them the same question: were you prepared? And the interesting thing is that most of them actually were prepared, meaning that you're no longer talking about backbone technologies like high-speed access and wireless, which enable a lot of things. They already had that. And so it was a matter, if they did not have the right technologies in place, like if they were a fine dining, or if they were in certain segments and independent that didn't have delivery, for instance, and maybe not even online ordering, most of their providers were able to provide it. So the real challenge is that a lot of people actually threw things in at the last minute, which is a good thing because they were able to take orders and stuff. The bad thing is that the challenge is as they come out of this, that some of the things they threw in may not work exactly really well together long-term, which is a huge problem for them because they didn't think about it. You do things out of necessity. But the silver lining in the whole thing is that in doing what they did, they ended up having a lot more data. And if you think about the normal restaurant, not Starbucks, who has a large number of people using their app, most restaurateurs do not know who their clients are. Hotels know, casinos know, and airlines. But restaurants don't. And even if they're using OpenTable or something, they may not know. All of a sudden, all orders have to come through to the restaurant. And therefore, they now have a whole new client base. And so technology going forward is going to be focused on digital. How do they connect and keep the customers? And how do they use the data that they have? And that's what we're advising them on now.
The lifespan of the average technology, Robert, what you're developing today and is implemented in a restaurant or a hotel, is the lifespan 5 years? Is it 3 years? Is everything a little bit different?
That's a great question. So in selecting systems, they used to say, well, at one time it was 7 years, then it became 5. Today, I think you have to have a constant rolling 3-year average because you're going to be bringing things in and out. And even if you use a best of breed approach, which means picking the best applications rather than everything from all one provider, you have to at least know what you think you're going to do in the next year or two, because what you don't want to do is put something in now that's going to come out. So it's probably a total 3-year horizon. And a lot of it is software, but you choose your hardware to last 5. But even on the hardware side, since a lot of it is now very off the shelf type of hardware, think of the phone, right? So people are using like a phone as a order device, right? For servers. Well, what's the maximum plan most people do today? 2-year plan, right? So as long as you think about it's called evergreen your hardware, whether it's PCs or whether it's sort of like leasing your hardware, so to speak, or your handhelds, then it's software, and software is a lot easier, but 3 years is the max.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Let's segue to Rick Benninghove. Rick, as you know, I was at your property a few weeks ago. For the students who haven't seen the Longboat Key Club, they renovated it. It is pristine. I wanted to stay there for the week. I don't think they wanted me to stay there, but it's just a special place, and we're truly blessed to have it in our region. With that, Rick, because of the times, there's that adage when a flight leaves with an empty seat, you never get those revenues back. What's lost is lost. With the times, do you have a mindset through these times? What is lost on revenues? Or do you have the mindset as the light begins to shine through the tunnel through unique marketing and promotions, you can get back a percentage of what you lost this past year?
Well, when you look at the losses, I think that you'll never get all of it back. Like you said, you're not going to get back those particular guests. But I truly believe if we continue on the path we're heading with COVID recovery, that we're coming up on the best year ever for the Longboat Key Club. Due to the renovations that you talked about, we're coming out with a completely fresh product. Our lobby, our restaurants are all brand new. We literally ripped that building down to the ground and built it back up. The pool, brand new. The entire resort center, all 226 rooms, will be completely finished by the end of the year. So in a way, as much as it was difficult and actually slowed down the renovations when COVID first hit, because we didn't even have workers at that point hardly to work on it. In some ways, it was a blessing because we had lower inventory coming out of COVID, and we've been filling up that inventory every single weekend, which has been pretty amazing with the lower inventory we have. So when we come out with a completely fresh product, if the recovery is what we think it's going to be our best year ever. Now, that does not go for group. I'm sure Damian can tell you that too. Group, none of us have a very optimistic viewpoint right now on group business. It's coming back very slowly. I mean, we can get wedding business, small weddings, small groups, some distance groups, some groups that look just like this room here. We have a few people that are at the hotel and the rest of them are on Zoom meetings. So that's coming back slow. So we have to concentrate on the leisure market. And we really feel like it's going to come back very strong because we think it's going to stay domestic within the U.S. and we're going after that market. We're going to keep the U.S. People in the U.S. instead of traveling all over the world, and we're going to bring them all down to Florida and split them up between our properties here. So we're optimistic to have the best year ever, but will it make up for this year? Probably not.
Okay, thanks, Rick. David Burton, let me segue to you as a restaurateur. A lot of the restaurants that were able to reopen had outdoor seating. Were able to do the pickup service or deliveries. Do you stay within your strength post-crisis, or do you look to diversify your product so you prepare, God forbid, for another adversity that may come at you?
Great question. For us, I feel like, my concepts that did have the outdoor seating and we were able to make that quick adjustment, we definitely fared better. What we're starting to see is people are starting to get a little comfortable nowadays with the indoor dining, but it's still nowhere near, obviously, where it was. As far as long-term impacts, I still think it's really a little too soon to judge. But we're definitely making changes to incorporate more outdoor seating in all of our venues as we move forward. I think it's a necessity and something that will probably stick around, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's some really good feedback. I'm going to shift gears here and go to my good friend Ken Edwards. I think he's zooming in from what we call the Valley of the Sun in Phoenix. And I've always been intrigued since I've known Ken. He doesn't know this, but I actually consider him a mentor. His wisdom that he expresses is really kind of striking. And the man has grown in business in a very short period of time. And Ken, I've always been curious. You got your master's degree recently, and me maybe being foolish was like, wow, why did Ken take the time to attain his master's degree? And was it just personal, or was there more to it than that you can share with the students?
Well, for me, it was personal because an old friend of mine says, since I own the company, Ken, when you get your master's, are you going to give yourself a raise? So that was sort of like in jest, but all three of my children have their master's or their JD in law. And so I sort of felt like for me to be equal, from an educational point of view with my children, if I'm going to preach education to people in general, because I think education is the key to every lock, both from owning your own business or working for somebody else, that I went back to school. And quite frankly, it was an excellent period of time. I knew more about Zoom than anyone else last year knew about Zoom, because they have a hybrid Zoom course at USF. And I met some great friends. Jordan Law is an example. One of them works for me, Sam. He was part of my USF graduation class. So it was very, very unique for me to go back to school. Now, what I would suggest to any student right now is get your master's. Just get your master's in hospitality or your MBA, because jobs right now are probably a little more difficult to find, and the master's will follow you for life. So create a little separation between you and your competition in the future. And everybody looks at COVID, what can I do right now that's sort of opportunistic? And if I were a student, I would consider getting my master's and consider to keep going through the program at USF or at one of the universities in Florida.
So you would say if it's affordable, it's hard to get your bachelor's, get away from it for years, and then get back into the learning mode while attaining your master's degree. If you can go right from your undergrad to your grad, that's the best path to take.
Yeah, especially since you're an in-state student in Florida, it is affordable. I had to pay out-of-state tuition because I was in Scottsdale, Arizona. But for an in-state student, it's affordable. You already got your groove going, meaning that you can continue to study the way that you've developed yourself over the last 4 years. And it will create a difference between you and your competition 10 years from now, when people are looking to employ you at perhaps a senior development level.
Great. Thanks so much, Ken. Sure. My good friend, Charles Githler, it's great to see you, sir. You are a developer. You've developed hotels. As Virginia and I know, there was probably 5-6 years ago where it was talked about in the region that we had a void. We needed more hotels in our region. Some of us said we do. Some of us said we didn't. Now there's talk about, is there saturation? Charles, what variables do you look for as a developer when it's time to build and when it's time to hold off right now? Describe the market that makes it ripe to build more, specifically hotels.
That's an excellent question, Elliot. And I want to thank everyone for having me on this board. Couldn't be prouder of USF Hotel School and the work that Patrick and Jihan and all the rest of you have done since the beginning. And I have been on the board since the beginning. So the question, unfortunately, it's not as, it's complicated because it's the availability of financing, which really comes down to, in most recent years, to the angle of RevPAR growth. If RevPAR growth in a particular market is on a steep incline, typically because there's a shortage of hotel room stock and increased demand, then it's very easy to finance, and you get people coming out of the woodwork and from all over the world to develop in a market as small as Sarasota when RevPAR growth is in an incline, and various types of lenders, from typical lenders to brand new banks and so forth that normally wouldn't go into hospitality. So that's where the demand for room growth actually meets fruition. And as all of us know, in recent years, there's been an enormous surge in local hotel room growth, and as a result, we've got an oversupply, which of course was exacerbated by the COVID and other reasons for hotel demand to go down. So, but I think it's important to remember at a time like this, because you asked me before the last time we had a meeting, Elliot, about leadership and what I could share with the students. And I can tell you without any hesitation, I would love to be going into the business right now. And I used to say to people, younger people, I used to say, if you live here in Sarasota and you've got some ambition and you want to go get a good education, as Ken was talking about, and you want to work hard, you could stay here in Sarasota and make a pretty good living. Today, I talked to all my classmates from school and my friends from my native state of New Jersey and elsewhere, and I tell them and their adult children, Florida in general and Sarasota in particular might be your best opportunity, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. Notwithstanding that I've also been in the convention business for 40 years, and I believe that we're almost, that this is going to be a faded memory for the group business. If you give me 3 to 5 years down the road, I think that we will see a resumption in the group business. There's just too much basic human psychology going on that require people to get together. So I think those are, I think the other thing that's happened very interestingly is that hospitality has kind of come upside down. The open corridor hotels in this environment have actually been outperforming to some degree what we all went for, the product that all of us decided we needed to have, which was crowd everybody into an elevator, build a big tower, have these long corridors, typically double loaded. And I'm the president of a condo association that owns a resort on Lido. We're having the best year we've ever had, and it's because people like the idea of having these open, they go right from their car to their room and from their room to their car, and it's all open. And yes, it's Florida, and yes, it's hot outside, and yes, we have the rains and everything. But I just thought I'd throw that one in there. And I think the other two things I'd like to talk about or just mention is that I gave a talk to the Economics Club of Sarasota on the economic forces behind the development boom that we're having, which is part of the Ivy League group for you Penn Staters, and here in Sarasota. And all those forces, and this was right before COVID, all those forces are still intact, which is why my other big takeaway, if anybody's taking notes, is for God's sake, whatever you do, do not lose sight of the long-term trend. Keep your focus on the long-term trend and think long and hard about how COVID has kind of pulled those forward, like you've seen the boom in e-commerce, which is expected to hit $1 trillion within the next 12 months. It's pulling forward trends that were already in place, but it didn't change the long-term trend. It just pulled it forward. And what we're seeing in the local market is discouraging, which is a lot of vacancy and lack of demand. But this will be gone before we know it. And it's obviously, and that's the reason for, among other things, that Rick's colleagues at Ocean Properties are going to redevelop the Helmsley with a very high-end hotel product that Sarasota has never seen before in terms of rates and so forth, and a hell of a lot of meeting space unless they make a radical change to the program. And also the St. Regis, which is on the former Colony Beach and Tennis Club, almost 18 acres out on Lombo Key. It's going to be mostly condominiums, but it's going to be a St. Regis hotel. And we're talking about room rates that you only see when you're on, Miami Beach, that kind of thing. I mean, much, much higher room rates than what we have here in Sarasota. So we're getting that transformation. And it won't be unprecedented because we've seen our condominium sale prices at $1,000 to $1,200 a square foot hit the same, close to the same numbers as what we saw only a few years ago over on the East Coast. So Florida's doing great, and Sarasota's doing very well. And your career in the hospitality business is something I would stay very focused on, and to the points that Ken was making. Got to be able to read these star reports. You got to be able to read these financial statements, and you got to be able to conceptualize what it all means and how to plan things out into the future. And with that, you can win huge in this business. You really can.
Yeah, Elliot, can I just simplify the RevPAR issue for a minute?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that almost all the experts say that RevPAR is not going to come back to 2019 measures until 2023. Some might say 2022, but really looks like we're not going to get back to a full stabilization until 2023 probably. So I just want to give the students an idea of what RevPAR is going to look like. It's not going to be a fast growth. It looks like it's going to be a slow growth. And much of what Charles said, there was an overdevelopment going on at the same time.
Ken, would you say that occupancy rates, it's more than just occupancy rates to judge saturation in a market?
Yeah, so COVID really did two things to the hotel industry. It dropped occupancy rate, which means you don't have demand, so the owners drop rate. So we had the combination of the two storms. Lower rates and lower occupancy means less revenue and less profit. And until they can fix the airline business, they're not going to really fix the hotel business nationally.
Thank you, sir.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, sir, Robert.
You know, for a long time, I know there's certain industry standard measurement like RevPAR or check average in the restaurant industry. You know, I always learned from the casino industry to also look at revenue per available guest. And if there was ever a time to increase revenue per guest, if you have less guests, focusing on other services and things that can be sold to somebody who's there, which also, you know, some companies, you know, started offering new services, and I keep asking them if they're going to get out of that business. But when you see, like in the restaurant business, somebody like Panera doing groceries, that's a whole new revenue base there to them. And I think there's going to be a lot of partnerships between hotels and restaurants because of limited meeting space for restaurants, that there's more space available in the hotels, that they may actually be a good source of a partnership, that if you have to offer more function space or meeting space, they may not be able to do it, and that partnerships are going to occur.
Great. Thanks, Robert. I love having Jason's age range on the panel. A recent student now working at Zoda. And Jason, as an old baseball player, I could probably teach you how to stand in the batter's box, how to hold your hands, what to look for that's coming off the pitcher's hand. But at the end of the day, until you get in the batter's box, we're not going to know whether you're going to be able to hit the baseball or not. So with that, you graduated with your bachelor's, you got a job at Zoda, and as you're learning, is there now some areas that you can pinpoint where you say, gosh, you know what? These are areas that I really need to polish to be able to grow in the hotel business. Is there any area that you can share with the students out of the gate where you knew pretty fast where you need polishing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question, Elliot. And once again, I would, as always, like to thank the advisory board for inviting me to be part of this panel. Just one quick correction, though. I'm actually at Lido Beach Resort, not Zoda, but Zoda is a sister property of ours. So I'm very familiar with it. But to address your question specifically, I've been fortunate enough to, I was retained, my employment was retained for this entire pandemic. So I was not furloughed. I did not lose my job. So I've seen the very best and the very worst of what the hospitality industry in general has to offer over the course of the last year. I think my big takeaway from this, and this is something as a front office manager, I really try to impress upon my staff, that, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. It's been emotionally exhausting. It's been physically exhausting. It's been mentally exhausting these past 6 or so months. And as a result, it's very easy to become cynical, as cliche as that might sound. But, it's important not to let that impact your sense of empathy with your guest or your client or your customer, because at the end of the day, that's what hospitality is all about, is like establishing that connection with your guest and ensuring that they know that you're empathetic to their plight. I have people standing in front of me on a daily basis that, they might have an issue or something that I need to resolve. And they always started off with, well, we have limited finances due to, a loss in income recently. And this is the first time we've gotten out of the house in the last 6 to 8 months. And so this vacation in general is really important to us. And, when I hear that, I instantly do whatever it takes to make things right and to ensure that they have a phenomenal experience going forward. So I think that's my main lesson that I've learned is, regardless of how difficult things may seem at the time, it's really important to not let that impact the level of customer service that you're capable of providing to your guest or customer.
Thanks so much, Jason. I'm looking at Virginia. In Virginia, you, as chairwoman of Visit Florida, during your time, you had some challenges where the state of Florida wasn't really sure that there was a need for the amount of marketing dollars that your board suggested to effectively promote the state of Florida. I think there's a mindset sometimes of, Florida is a tourist destination. You really don't need to market it as much as marketing people think. People will come regardless. Virginia, how important is it to always market the brand elements in good times and in bad based on the competition that states like Florida have globally?
Well, I think you said it, and that's competition. And if you're not out there telling the story of your destination, someone else will. I'm sure the students have all heard the example of the state of Colorado. A number of years ago, the legislature decided in a budget crisis, no more tourism funding. And that is when you saw the amazing rise of the state of Utah as both a ski destination and then a summer outdoor destination. It decimated Colorado's tourism industry. And it took them almost, the funding was returned very quickly, and it took them about 10 years to climb back. And then the other quick story, there was a beautiful little town in the San Francisco area. Same thing. They felt like they were overwhelmed and that their beautiful little downtown with the art galleries, just way too many visitors. Again, they pulled back their marketing. What's interesting in that case is they actually still got the same number of visitors. But instead of being able to support the fine arts galleries, those galleries slowly had to close their doors and they were replaced by t-shirt and ice cream shops. So you had your high value visitor who everybody else wanted in the San Francisco region, and they took them away, and you were left with the day tripper just coming over for a couple of hours and leaving. So it's really important to continually send that message that you may think you're the best thing, you are the best thing. If you're not out there talking to your customers, someone else will.
Yeah, and Virginia said it at the end of the day, I think Virginia and I would call ourselves community servants. We serve a community, and we have to constantly educate residents, stakeholders, elected officials, what we do, why we do, when we do it. Because if you have to be reactive, it's a lot harder than if you're always proactive. So, and that's in any business. Really, really important. I'm going to shift. Damian, first of all, Ed Childs is on the call. He's having trouble with his technology. But, you know, Ed Childs has been an owner operator of many 3 restaurants on Lombo Key and Anna Maria Island, and has been on our Tourist Development Council he's our senior member, well over 20 years, probably north of 25 years. And if there is a leader in our community, it's Ed Childs. And I would love to have asked Ed this question, but we want the students to be able to hear. So I'm going to shift to Damian, who I look at as a community leader. And once again, if I needed a mentor for my daughter going into the hospitality industry, Damian would be right in my wheelhouse because of his characteristics. Damian, if you had an employee or student come to you and say, you know what, I really believe that I want to be a future leader. And is it going to take me years to become a strong leader, or what would I do to become a consistent, effective leader as I grow through life? What would you tell them?
You know, thank you, Elliot. I think that we've all worked our way through different situations and different types of crisis, I would say. And I think there has been no bigger crisis in any of our careers in hospitality than the pandemic. So I think this is a great time for somebody to grow as a leader and develop as a leader, because I think the skills that, and I see that with some of our young leaders here at the moment, the way they have stepped up to the plate over the last 6 or 7 months has been truly impressive. Just like I see about Jason. Jason, congratulations! I saw you were actually promoted during the pandemic as a great testament to your leadership. So I think with each challenge you go through in life, you learn from it, and you become more resilient, and you become stronger. And I think this is, you have to look at the opportunity that comes out of this pandemic. Is about how are we all growing? How have we fine-tuned our people skills? How are we becoming more innovative? And, you know, there's a lot of things at the moment that we are not able to do, but that's not what we focus on. We focus on how do we turn that around, whether it's with dining options or QR codes or different items that we're being innovative with, you know, the mobile check-in process, the web check-in process. How do we become more innovative? And I think in these very challenging times, you really have to dig deep, and you have to realize that this is going to pass, and when it passes, I'm going to become stronger. But I will honestly say, Elliot, I think there is no better learning time to grow as a leader as what's been going on in the last 7 months. And I know I've grown myself as a leader. I think if you told any of us that we were going to go through this in our careers, I knew I hadn't seen everything, but I knew I'd seen a lot of things. And let me tell you, all the challenges that I went through in my career, I would happily take them all back versus go through this one big pandemic. So I would say, you know, when you're dealing with difficult situations, you have to take them head on. You work as a team and you work as a unit, and you know that this is going to pass, but you learn so much and you grow so much in the challenging times, much more, I think, than when the times are good. When the challenging times come, that's when people really show their true grit and determination, and that's when they find their leadership skills.
Thanks so much.
Elliot, before you continue, thank you, Damian. Before you can, Pat, before you continue, just 2 things. First of all, I want to apologize to Jason Pabst. Jason, Elliot, that was my fault that he mentioned Zoda. I don't know, I had a brain burp and put down Zoda instead of Lido. Sorry about that. And they're related though. And also, I just wanted to double check, Elliot, you said Ed was having trouble with his audio, but I see his frame lighting up over here. Ed, do you have audio? I guess not, Elliot. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you go, Ed. Hey, Ed, how are you, sir?
Okay, good. So I'm talking on my phone while I'm watching on the PC because I can't get audio on my PC, but I thought every time I was going off mute, it was creating a really loud background noise.
It's not creating noise and you can hear me great.
It's an echo now, Ed.
Yeah, we're getting feedback, Ed. We really appreciate you listening in. We know you go into the classroom from time to time. So Ed is working hard in Montana right now. I say that facetiously, and we really look forward to seeing you back in our beautiful community soon, Ed. Rick, I'm going to shift to you. I know Ocean Properties they have initiatives to get their employees hired, trained, and hire within. When you hire an employee, especially an employee right out of school, what attributes do you look for to know pretty quick that they have a high ceiling in their career?
Great question. Thank you, Elliot. I think with myself, with Ocean Properties as a whole, you really look for somebody that has the ambition and the initiative. You can learn everything else, but as far as they have to have that hospitable spirit that they want to solve the puzzle. I always call hospitality solving the puzzle. You know, you're always put forth, as Jason was talking a little bit about earlier, about having that challenge guest that gets in front of him, that's been saving up for this vacation, especially after COVID, looking forward to it, and he figures out a way to make it work for them. That's exactly what you want. You want someone that loves to solve puzzles, loves to try to figure out how to make the best of every situation. So when we're looking for someone, we want somebody to be very outgoing, just to come across in an extremely positive manner, to be willing to solve that puzzle, and just to be genuinely a people person. I mean, that's what makes the biggest difference in this industry. You have to be a people person. You have to enjoy meeting people. When people go on vacation, it's typically the most important time for them. They're either, taking a break from work, which is important for all of us, and going on vacation, or maybe they're going to a wedding, or maybe they're going to a funeral, or maybe they're visiting family. But it's such an important time, and it's up to us to make that a spectacular time for them, to make the best of that situation. So when we're looking to hire somebody, when I'm interviewing them, I like to just sit back and see what they tell me about their passions. What is your passion? What is it that you want to see? And it might not even be about hospitality at all. If you're talking about your passions in life and what you like to do, you're making an impression on someone in that interview. So you have to be passionate to be in this industry.
Elliot, are you comfortable now, Elliot? It's 1:26 with opening it up for some student questions, and then we can go back to your list of questions.
No, that was, I was getting ready to segue to you or Dr. Jihan. So yes, let's open it up to the students or anybody texting Jihan questions from abroad.
We'll leave you as the moderator, Elliot. You're doing a great job. So students, have at it. Elliot's all yours for questions for any but one in particular, or for him to assign to someone.
I love that. Actually.
Go ahead, Cole.
So I started off in So I started off in this industry in February this year. So I kind of got a good month and a half of the industry, and it at a peak. And then it went into the pandemic, where I was furloughed for a while. But coming back, I've seen a lot of people like Jason said, a lot of people are getting out for the first time in a long time, and they really need this vacation to go well. But I want to play devil's advocate here, because while I do want to help these people and make sure their trip is phenomenal, do any of the hotel managers in this panel see people taking and abusing the pandemic as a way to get compensation in any way? Like I want to help these people in any way I can, but I don't want to bend over backwards for someone who is trying to abuse this system, which it likely is happening.
I'd be happy to answer that, Elliot, if you like.
Sure.
I think there's always someone looking to take advantage of the situation. You're going to have that guest that comes forward and they're looking to get something out of the program. You're better to give them something than not to give the person who deserves it something. If you're always trying to judge the guest and figure out if they're in the right or the wrong, you're going to make a mistake more often than you're not. And you end up penalizing that person that had a real issue. So if you just got to put your heart in it and do the best you can and take care of that guest. Even if they're trying to take advantage of the situation, it's still your job to make sure they have a great time and just enjoy it. So I wouldn't, we don't really spend a lot of time second guessing that issue. Now, if you do something for them today and then tomorrow you do something for them and then tomorrow night you do something for them, there's a certain point you do draw the line in the sand, but you have to assume that they're in the right. You have to assume that there's really an issue, at least in their head, and you got to jump in and just take care of them. If you spend your time worrying about it, you typically make the wrong decision, in my opinion.
Damian, same thoughts, same philosophy?
Yes, I would definitely agree. I think our guests are amazing, and it is true. A lot of them have not been out in 6 months or 8 months, and they've entrusted us with their stay, with their experience. So I think it's really focusing on that experience. And listen, guests do have opportunities. It's a matter of how you own it and you resolve it, and you make sure that the rest of their experience is flawless, because that's 99% of the time, that's really what they want. I always say to our ladies and gentlemen at orientation, I said, every single guest who pulls up to our resort pulls up with the fact that the expectation that they're going to have an amazing time. And all we have to do is, sometimes they've been dreaming about this for a month, 2 months, 6 months, and all we have to do is deliver on that expectation. So if we fall short on that expectation, I think the most important thing is that we resolve it in a timely manner, and then we make sure that they have an exceptional rest of their stay. And I think it's also very important, Cole, when you're apologizing, you're listening from the heart. I always think about it as if it's one of my family members. I come from a large family, and I always think about it if it was one of my family. And it's really about listening and empathizing and understanding it from the guest's perspective. I will tell you from experience, I have dealt with some guest opportunities, and usually when they get to me, it may have gone through a few people beforehand, or maybe the guest will just contact me directly. Some of those guests have become our most loyal guests to the resort, and that's what you will find. So it's really about being there to serve and look after them. But you will be surprised that some of the guests who had opportunities will become your biggest fans and your biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah. Before we go to the next question, I got to ask Robert Grimes. Believe it or not, I was a restaurant manager in another life. And I was a believer of turning a negative into a positive, even though they already felt okay. I'll give you a quick example. If I told a customer that the wait was 30 minutes and it ended up being 45 minutes and they didn't complain about it, my philosophy was, I'm going to buy them a glass of wine or a free dessert without them asking, because I wanted them to remember me beyond their experience that evening. Robert, I don't see that today when there's customer complaints. Is that a philosophy that should be there, especially with the social media channels that exist today, or should more restaurants specifically be taking the initiative and offering that client, whether it's a free appetizer, knowing that it should benefit them in the long run?
So first of all, you just asked a really good question. So I was sitting here listening intently and thinking about exactly what you were saying, okay? And it made me think of something. So people can give instant feedback today. And so the operators, whether they're hotels, restaurants, or whatever, have to be able to see that feedback, because our challenge has always been to correct an issue before somebody actually leaves, if it's possible. So A, you better be connected in to know that the feedback is there. And B, it's about instant gratification, whether they're giving you negative feedback or not. And so people always want upgrades, and whether it's a hotel upgrade, an airline upgrade, whatever it is, they want something instantly in there. So not only do we have the opportunity to ensure loyalty, we have to track, because the information is out there, correct while they are there before it really gets out everywhere else. We can actually fix it now all in one swoop, which we could never do before. And so, yeah, I do think that we have to take action on it, especially when service levels are a lot less than they used to be. It's a lot easier to complain because there may not be as much guest contact.
But I want Ken's feedback too. But Ken, I'm going to ask you a different way. Do you take action before the customer asks for an upgrade? So beat them to the question. And I think that maybe, does that go a longer way with the customer, or no?
Well, certainly, I think what Robert said is getting an upgrade is awesome. I mean, so to get a free dessert is a great thing, and to provide it without asking for it is anticipating a customer and what their needs are. The balance that you have during COVID is that you have most hotels that are trimming down their staff, yet a customer still has a high expectation. I think that balance is a little more difficult to walk. So in the real world without COVID, that's a great thing. During COVID, in the hotel business at least, all of us have trimmed down our and I'm sure Damian's trimmed down his staff. And so the employees or the managers may be doing 2 or 3 things that they wouldn't have been doing if it wasn't during COVID. So it's a balancing act. It sounds good and it looks good on paper, but it is truly a balancing act.
Robert, Ken, thanks. Great feedback for the students. Students, any other questions? Let's open it up. Come on, y'all get extra credit for questions.
Sid, you usually have good questions to ask.
Yes.
I have a little question.
Who's talking? Devin. Okay, go, Devin.
I don't know if this was already talked about earlier, but okay, so I work for Chick-fil-A, and we already had drive-through and mobile ordering, but we decided to not even open up the dining room. We still don't have that open. Have any of you that might have added mobile ordering, pickup and all that, found that it's a really good thing and you want to expand on that now? Keep improving it even after COVID?
Robert, you have some feedback for Devin?
Yeah, so most people who have put in mobile ordering that didn't have it before are absolutely going to keep it. They are also going to keep delivery if they didn't do it before, therefore creating a new day part in their revenue model. And I think some of the analysis is going to be done that way. But mobile ordering is sort of an interesting thing. Somebody on this panel earlier said that COVID pushed people into doing some things quicker than they might have done before. What mobile ordering really is a portable point. Thank you, Charles. Is actually portable point of sale. And there's been long time discussion about bring your own device for customers as well as operators, putting aside legal issues in California that have to do with, paying somebody to use their own device. And I think that mobile ordering may actually push a lot of operations to reducing their spend because the customer is going to be more engaged up front, or the employee is going to use their own device now that you have that software in place.
Devin, this is Damian. I just want to say I have a Chick-fil-A across from my house. I live out near close to Clark and Honoré, and I think your service levels and your philosophy is amazing as a company. I really do. But I think Chick-fil-A, whenever I go to Chick-fil-A, when I bring my kids, I always learn something new, because the way you deal with the volume and the way that I always say we should open some Chick-fil-A's in Ireland to my kids, because I'm telling you, every time there is a line going out the door, but Chick-fil-A is so innovative about the way they take the order, then somebody else processes the payment, then you go on. So you're constantly moving. And I think Chick-fil-A has done it very well. I will tell you, for us, in terms of our in-room dining and to-go orders, we have definitely seen that increase. And that's something that we we'll see, I think, moving forward. Also, just, you know, we do some grab and go. We've seen that definitely increase as well. But I think one thing as well is about the speed that you're able to deliver it in for your guests. I think that is something that's usually important. And ye have done an exceptional job with that. And I think that's what people want. They want to, sometimes they just want it. They want it right now, and they want to go off somewhere and enjoy it. And we've seen a big uptick in that during the last number of months.
And I just want to talk as a customer. I'm a customer of Dunkin'. I go every morning, and take mobile just a step further. I pay with my phone. So I order on my phone. I cut through the line, so I don't have to stop and order. I order on my phone. I pick up my item. I pay with my phone, and it probably takes all of about 1 or 2 minutes. So mobile in the restaurant business, to me, seems like a no-brainer. No one has to touch me. I don't have to hand them a credit card and worry about, you know, how many credit cards they've touched. I just hold my phone out, they click on it, and away I go.
The challenge is that kitchens have to be redesigned. If you go ahead and you double the throughput, they still expect the shorter amount of time, as Starbucks learned. And actually, Damian, you were talking about to grab and go. You know, there were other things that came about too, and I'm sure you have it at the college as well. Micro markets, which are unattended, which are contactless. You're starting to see in the airports. You're seeing dorms, no food in the food service in the dorm. It's grab and go. And we're starting to see micro markets are probably going to self-attended, scan it, are going to appear in hotels, especially in limited service as well. That's something that got sped up all because of this whole thing.
If I could interrupt just for 1 second, Elliot, these are just great comments. Yes. We have 5 minutes left. Just Jihan, is there any question that you feel a particular need to ask of Elliot before we go back to the students?
Dr. Pat, if students have any question, they can do, but one viewer asked the panelists very quickly. Many people say that hospitality industry changed a lot and will stay like this forever. Meeting industry got hurt a lot. Does the panelists think that we need to think about new business models to cope with the reduced demand, or do they believe that once COVID is finished, will everything go back to normal?
Good question. Elliot, who do you want to give?
Rick, you want to, I would say Rick or Damian, you want to jump in on that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's going to come back. I think we're going to come back to the business levels we had before, and maybe better, but I think it's totally changed. Just all the things we're talking about here, the grab and goes, the electronic. We've gone so much more electronic than we were before COVID, and that's not going to go away. We're texting with our customers. We're apping with our customers. We're doing all these instantaneous gratification things with our customers now that we were just starting on before COVID. So everything has changed. We're not going to go backwards, but the path forward is pretty exciting, in my opinion. I think it's going to come back fast, unless we have, you know, something that none of us want to have happen. Outside of that, I think it's going to come back pretty quick. I think, again, for the next 12 to 16 months, it's going to be a lot less group and a lot more transient, but we're all going to work to move the needle on that. And then I think once they get comfortable, I think group's going to come back, and it's going to be shaped slightly differently, but it's going to come back. I mean, we're going to see the convention centers full. We're going to see the group, you know, right back to where it was or stronger, in my opinion.
And like Robert said, there's an investment to change the business model. There's capital sometimes that's incurred if you go down that road. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I was just going to say what Robert's talking about is that the hotel box itself looks like it's going to stay exactly the way it is. What's changing is technology, and I think COVID pushed us into the technology piece quicker. You're going to see self check-in. You're going to see keys on your phone. Your phone's going to become your main carrier. You're going to order all your restaurant food on your phone. It's going to be delivered by a robot, and you're going to be happy with that. However, at the resort hotels, you're still going to go to the spa. You're still going to go to the tennis court. You're still going to go to the golf course. But technology is going to speed communication up, and it's going to make the services, I think, better for the customer.
Thanks, Ken. Ed Childs texted me, and he said, you must have mobile platforms now. He said they'll be definitely focusing on more takeout as a result of the COVID experience. What's neat is Ed partners with a farm out east, and you can actually order an organic produce box through your mobile site and basically just pick it up, and you never have to touch it. So it's another version of what Ken talked about at Dunkin', where you can order everything, pay for everything, and the produce is in a box for pickup. So it's evolving because of COVID, and I think it's creating a new trend post-COVID as well. Any other questions from the students? We have about 2-3 minutes. Go ahead, Sid.
All right, so just kind of going with the pattern of rapidly increasing technology and things like that. You know, with all the new online mobile orders and everything like that, there's a lot more points of, I guess, danger for customers and the people who are running the websites and things like that. How are you guys going forward creating, you know, secure, I guess, networks at your hotels, things like that? How are you guys going forward with online security? Robert, thought?
Yep. Before I log off, you asked the question right as I was going to leave. You know, the good news is that there is online security today. The good news is that a lot of these systems are actually hosted in the cloud. So we've gotten rid of that idea of having data stored down at the unit level. And so the security is there. You know, is it 100%? No. You know, that is a problem that continues there. But because of all the data that's out there and because of all the different secure transactions and the way they're set up, at least, you know, I think the technologies are a little bit more secure than they were before, but obviously it's not perfect. So I gotta leave, but thank you.
So do we.
Robert.
Elliot, I want to thank you for, you just do a yeoman's job with this. You make this all look so simple. It is not simple. And you just did a great job. I want to give Elliot a hand, everybody. Great job. And students, you were wonderful. Thanks for keeping your videos on. It makes it so much easier to talk. Dean Limayam, are you still there, or are you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So Dean Limayam, I'm going to ask you this afternoon's meeting too, but the students could benefit from this. What is it that you're telling us about a crisis all the time?
We should never let a crisis go to waste, and we should always learn from it and leverage on our learning, and always leverage on everything we learned, and more importantly, be more resilient. So that's the lesson learned for me, at least.
Good lesson. And students, just so you know, we will have more time with a few of these folks. Next week, Virginia Haley will be our guest in class, and she you know, she sort of gives you the other end of the geographic area that Elliot did last week, which was wonderful. And then I think Rick Benninghove, you're in on November the 10th, and that'll be a further opportunity to talk. And Ken Edwards, you're in on November the 24th. We'll get to the rest of you victims next semester. I want to, and Jihan, thanks for all your hard work today in doing this. And thank you, audience around the world, I don't know, all 15 of you, for tuning in today. It was wonderful. This is recorded, as always, so if anybody needs to see it, you can, and Jihan has the link. It's on YouTube under the M3 channel. Okay, terrific. And students, we'll see you next week. Faculty, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And board members, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today.